Hey everybody, Dr. O here. Hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully you're able to hear me. I got a new microphone. Um yeah, I'm excited about my new microphone. So hey everybody, Dr. O here. Listen, I'm here to build your confidence and your compassion so you can create a classroom that thrives. So in today's episode, what we are talking about today is building a strong foundation from the start. So I'm going to be talking about three keys for building a strong foundation. I'm not going to do all three today, but I wanted to jump on and start with the first one because it's so super important. So let me pull up my notes here. Pull up all my notes. So there are three. The first one is connection and relationships. The second one is expectations, clear expectations and structure. And the last one is the social emotional, building that social emotional resilience. So let's talk about the first one, connection and relationship. It's been said, and I'll say it again. Children don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Your responsibility the first 30 days of your classroom is to establish an atmosphere and a relationship of compassion and caring. You want the students to know that you actually care about them. Okay, that you actually care that they're there, that you actually want to teach them. It's not just about them learning to read, learning to write, learning math. That's not what it's about initially. What it's about is for you to understand that I care, because what is teaching? Teaching is nothing more than a series of interactions. How I interact with you is how I'm going to transfer information and how you're going to receive and perceive what it is that I am instructing. So, before you think about your curriculum, before you think about all the academic ease that people are going to learn, that your students are going to learn, and believe me, I'm all about the pedagogy. Okay, that's probably my favorite word. I say it all the time, pedagogy. The children need to know that you care. So you need to establish an environment that is caring. I care about the students. You know what that starts with? It starts by learning all your students' names, and not their nicknames and not their pet names. What is your name? And I know some students want you to call them by their nickname. Some students love a good nickname, and I'm all about nicknames, but to establish that I care about you, I need to learn your name, the name that was given to you by your caregiver. I need to learn that name. I need to learn how to pronounce that name correctly, because that is foundational, because your name is who you are. That's the first identifier that you have from birth, is your name. And so if I don't care enough to learn your first identifier, that means I don't care about you. What? And this is coming from someone who has been called a nickname since kindergarten. And I didn't realize that the nickname was actually created from, I guess, a space of your name was too hard to pronounce. My name is Arinthia, and it was Arinthia Jones. And I think in kindergarten is when my nickname started. I guess Arinthia was too hard. And since my initials were OJ, it was like, okay, we're going to call you OJ. OJ the Juice. OJ. I liked OJ. I thought OJ was really cool. I've been called OJ all my life, not by my family. My family could not stand it. Now I understand why, because it was a complete rejection of the name that they called me, Arinthia. I've heard people say, "Oh my goodness, Arinthia is such a beautiful name." Didn't realize how beautiful my name was until I was much older, because I've always been OJ. If you call me OJ, that means you knew me from back when, before I was Dr. O, before I was married, before I was Arinthia Harris, before I was OH, I was OJ. And although I love that name, and it was, I really liked it, I didn't realize that it really contributed to a lot of the low self-esteem that I had growing up. And I know it's hard to believe because I'm so cute. I once thought I was ugly. I know. Brace yourself. It's so hard to believe because, but I did. And perhaps the genesis of not thinking that I was beautiful can go all the way back to kindergarten, where it was easier to say OJ, so we're not going to say Arinthia. Now, I'm not saying that you cannot call students by their nickname. You cannot call students, but get to know their names and let the children know that you know their name. You know how to pronounce their name correctly, and their name is beautiful. That that simple thing, that little thing you can do to establish an environment where students are like, man, this teacher really cares about me. This teacher really likes me. And guess what? In order for you to do that, that doesn't cost any money. That doesn't, you don't have to go out and buy a whole bunch of things. To establish a relationship, to establish connection, to establish an environment where the students know that you care doesn't cost anything. And that, my friends, is foundational, because what is teaching? It is a series of interactions. How I interact with the students is going to impact what they're able to learn, because the highest need for everyone, according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or whatever that thing is, you know what it is the need to what? Belong. You learning my name and its correct pronunciation says I belong here. I belong here. And that is the first step that you can do. Establish that environment where you know all your kids' names, and then get to know what your kids like. What do you like? We used to spend the whole first week figuring out what students like, what are their favorites, all my favorite things, all about me posters, those things where we're like, let's just end. That's just fluff. Let's just get to the real work. No, that is the real work. You cannot skip that. That is the real work. It's necessary. Get to know your students. What do they like? What did they do over the summer? And for God's sakes, let them talk. Let them talk. You are going to do enough talking through the entire year. Give them an opportunity to be the expert, because they're the expert on themselves, and give them the space and the grace to talk about what they did. And for the love of God, please don't degrade what it is that they did because it's something that you don't find interesting or you're not really into. There was a story of a lady, she did a training for us several years back. And she said when she was in second grade, I think she was from Mexico. She was in second grade, and they did the whole get to know you all about me thing. And they got to do a presentation of what they did over the break. And she said what they did is they went back to Mexico and they had a big fiesta and pig roast. And it was a big deal. Her uncles got together and they would butcher the pig and all things. And she was very proud of of what she did, and she was very proud to share it with the class. And the teacher said, because she had pictures of her uncles with the pig and pictures of the pig on the roast or whatever, and the teacher was like, killing showing pictures of your uncles on top of a dead pig is so inappropriate. So, and then of course some of the students started laughing at her. And she said she was one of three students of color in her classroom. And she said she was so embarrassed in second grade. She never talked about her home, her culture, or any of that ever again. In fact, she was kind of embarrassed about her home and her culture, and, felt bad about being Mexican, and then tried to acquiesce to the white standard that was accepted in her classroom. So I share that because that happened to that lady in second grade. And she said it wasn't until much after high school, she said, that she started to say, hey, this really negatively impacted me, my experience in school. And it really has created a level of low self-esteem and not proud of who I am. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. So when your students are sharing about what they did, what their families have done, celebrate that. Stop. I got to lean in. Stop demonizing difference. Stop demonizing difference. Okay. So we're going to get to know our students' names. We're going to let our students talk about what it is they did and who it is, who they are, and all about me. And then Let your students get to know one another. A lot of times we think as teachers, it's my responsibility to know my kids, to know their names, to know who they are. And we take all that onus on ourselves. But keep in mind, we are co collaborating a classroom environment that's a community. It's not me and y'all. It's all of us. It's not y'all, it's all of us. And so, in the same way that you want to hold yourself accountable for learning your students' names, pronouncing your students' names right, and for you getting to know your students, put that same onus on your students for them to get to know each other. You hear somebody pronouncing somebody's name wrong, you correct them and say, if you don't know how to pronounce it, ask them how to pronounce it. Set up groups and small groups where they can talk to one another and learn. Have one kid present another kid. Like, this is the time that you need to take to build that foundation. First 30 days should be about relationship building and establishing an environment where you know that I care about you. And let's not take the diagnostic notes from the previous teacher and use them as a doom sentence on students as if they don't have the capacity to change. I'm not saying that information is not vital. Listen, we need to know that Johnny was throwing chairs last year. We need to know that Susie was biting. We need to know that, Malik vandalized property. Like, we need to know these things. But these things should not define a student to the point where you already prejudged the kid in your head, like, this gonna be my bad kid. Really? Really? Because perception is reality, and your perception will of your students will impact how you are engaging with them and interacting with them. And remember, teaching is nothing more than a series of interactions. And if you think you're interacting with the baddest kid in the school, you're not going to interact with them in the same way as if you thought you were interacting with the smartest kid in the school. So let's not use last year's notes from, what do you call those conferences where you kind of discuss this? I hated those. When I say I hated those with a passion, because it seemed like it was this gripe session, like, oh, you got to watch out for so and so. Oh, they're going to do this. They're going to do that. But riddle me this, Batman. Riddle me this. My mom, y'all know, those of you that follow me, you know, my mom is the GOAT. She is the GOAT of early childhood education. And they say, oh, we got to give this student a Miss Tony. So Miss Tony gets all the bad kids, quote unquote. But why is it that when Miss Tony gets the bad kids, they're no longer bad? So is it the kid that's bad, or the environment that's provoking the behavior that is giving the perception that this is a bad child? Because behavior is nothing more than communication. So, what is this child communicating? Has anybody stopped to think or to ask or to figure out what's going on with said kid? I digress. When we are building foundations, the very first thing you need to do is you need to establish a connection. You need to establish an environment, a relationship with the children where they know that you care about them. How do we do that? You get to know their name, their real name, the name given to them at birth. You learn how to say it correctly, and you celebrate that name. Even if they want to go by a nickname, you let that kid know, yeah, that's great. You want to be called OJ. That's wonderful. But Arinthia is such a beautiful name. It's so beautiful. In fact, I found out that Arinthia means Roman goddess of beauty. Of course, I made that up. And let the kids know that you know their names and you know how to pronounce their names. And then you give the kids an opportunity to share about themselves. Give them an opportunity to talk. What do you like? What don't you like? What movies did you see this summer? The number one thing that everyone cares about, including you and me, is themselves. And if you think I'm lying, when you take a picture with a group of people, who's the first person that you look at? It's you, because the number one person that everybody cares about is themselves. So let the children talk about themselves. What books do you like? What are you excited about? And then number three, don't just put it on you. This is a community. So, in the same way that you're holding yourself accountable to learn the students' names, make the students learn each other's names and make them pronounce it correctly. Let the students get to know one another. Set up activities where one student can introduce another student. Switch them groups up. Hello, is this thing on? Switch them groups up, people. Switch the groups up. Let all the students get to know all of the students. And last but certainly not least, but I definitely gave you four. I meant to give you three. Don't let last year's diagnostic notes about that student doom that child to failure in your class. Everyone deserves a fresh start. You can use that information to inform how you're going to make this student's year the best year ever. So get it right from the start. I promise you, when a student knows that you care about them, they really believe you care, I would venture to say that a large majority of your discipline problems will go all the way down. In all 20 some odd years that I taught in the classroom, my discipline challenges were very minimal. I don't remember having out of control students, out of control classroom. Classroom management was such a, I don't remember that. Did I have challenging students? Yes. Did I deal with students with difficult behavior? Absolutely. We all do. It's part of the course that comes with the territory. There's no such thing as a utopian classroom, and that's not what I'm preaching. But what I am saying is that you will get far more cooperation from students, even when they're crashing out. And students will crash out because they're human, just like you and me. You will get far more cooperation if the students know that you care about them. All right, that's all I have for today. Listen, we are starting strong, building strong foundation. As one of my favorite VeggieTales episodes, strong in the ground, you stick around. And that was from the parable of the wise man building his house on the sand and the foolish one, or the wise man building his house on the rock and the foolish one building his house on the sand. So listen, we are starting strong. We're building strong foundations. I'm Dr. O. I'm here to build your confidence and your compassion so you can create a classroom that thrives. So I want you to join me next time. And what we're going to talk about next time, I'm looking at my notes, is setting clear expectations. Clear expectations. First 30 days, we're going to be establishing those relationships, those caring relationships. We're going to be setting clear expectations. And last but not least, we're going to talk about social emotional resilience. That's probably going to be my favorite one to talk about. So I got to go. Happy New Year. Happy new school year. The best is yet to be. Make this your best year yet. And you can do that by starting strong. All right. So I will see y'all next time. Bye.